In this lecture, you'll learn how to connect to the command line on Cisco routers and switches over the corporate network. Before we get started, I want to make it clear that the way that the lab exercises work in this course is different than connecting to real routers and switches. The lab exercises use the free Cisco Packet Tracer software, which is standalone software that runs on your PC. So when you're doing the lab exercises in the course, you're not connecting to real routers and switches. You can see section 2, how to set up the lab, for step-by-step instructions on how to set up and use Packet Tracer for the course lab exercises. After you've passed your CCNA, you're going to be working as a network engineer on real networks with real routers and switches. So, of course, you're going to need to know how to connect to those real routers and switches as well. And that's what we're going to cover here. So when you are connecting to real routers and switches, you're going to use some software on your laptop to do that. And the most commonly used software to use is PuTTY, which is free software. But again, for the lab exercises in this course, you're not using PuTTY, you're not connecting to a real device, you're using Packet Tracer. So for this course, you do not need to install or use PuTTY. Okay, so let's carry on and see how this is going to work. So in your day-to-day tasks as a network engineer, you're not actually going to be physically touching the network devices. What's going to be happening is you're going to be sat at your desk working on your PC, and the device, the router or switch that you're working on, is going to be in another location. It's going to be in a locked cabinet, either in the same office that you're in, or the office could be anywhere in the world. And you're going to be connecting to that device over the network. And I'm going to show you how to do that now. So, for example, let's say that you, working as a network administrator, you are over here on this PC in London, and you're going to be connecting to this router in New York to work on it. So, how are you going to do that? Well, you're going to use software on your PC, which you're going to open. You're then going to connect to the router over the network all the way over in New York. You'll get to the command line and you'll be able to work on that router. So to get to the command line interface for your day-to-day management of Cisco devices, the protocol that you're going to be using in that software is called Secure Shell, SSH. And you're going to connect to the management IP address of the device. There is also another protocol supported, which is Telnet, but it is very not recommended to use that because it is insecure. So with both SSH and Telnet, they look and work exactly the same way. But the difference is that when you're entering commands in SSH, those commands are encrypted. When you enter commands in Telnet, they're unencrypted. So if anybody is sniffing your traffic over the network, they can see those commands, including your username and password. So Telnet is not used in real networks. It can be handy in a lab environment, but in a real corporate environment, you're going to be using SSH. As well as using SSH, also for security, secure login is going to typically be enforced, meaning that you have to enter a valid username and password. So we've got usernames and passwords to log in our devices. Your company's maybe got 100 different devices. You don't want to have to configure all your administrators' usernames and passwords on all 100 of those devices separately. You want that to be centralized. So what you'll have is a centralized AAA server. That stands for Authentication, Authorization, and Accounting. It's got access to the central database of all your usernames and passwords, saves you having them on each separate device. We're going to be covering SSH and AAA, including how to configure them in later lessons. I'm not going to cover it here because we need to have all the other settings on the device set up already as well. We haven't even configured an IP address yet, so I need to go through all of those other basic settings first. I'll show you how to configure SSH and AAA in later lectures in the course. Okay, but I can show you right now how this is going to actually work. So let's have a look at that. the first thing that we need to do is to actually download and install Putty. So to find Putty, it's very easy. We can just go to Google, and I'm going to Google for Putty download. And then it's this first entry here at putty.org. I will click on that, and then I can see I can download Putty here. I will click on the link, and then I'm on a 64-bit Windows machine here, so I am going to download the 64-bit Windows file. So I will click on that, and it's very small. I can see that it has downloaded already. So I will go to my downloads folder. I will double click on the Putty installer here. So I click next on the welcome screen. I'm happy to install it into Program Files Putty. Click next again. I'll accept all the defaults here and click on install, and then click on finish. So that was in Program Files and Putty. So I could create a desktop for a shortcut for this on my desktop. I'm just going to run the Putty executable file there, and this is what Putty looks like. And you can see in here that I've got my different connection types. So for connecting to a Cisco device, you can use Telnet or SSH or Serial, that I'll cover in the next lecture. We don't want to use Telnet because it's insecure. We're going to be using SSH, and I need to enter the IP address or host name of the device I'm connecting to. So my router is at 192.168.1.254. I'll enter that IP address, and then I will click on open. And because SSH is a secure protocol, it's giving me this warning message here about the exchange algorithm. I just click yes to say that I do want to continue. And then I get another warning message. I click yes on that as well. And I can see that it says up here, who do I want to log in as? Now, I know this is going to look very small for you, so let me also show you how you can customize the Putty settings. So I'll click on the Putty icon up here in the top left. I right click on there, and then I'm going to go change settings. And you can see you can change things like the colors, the appearance, and so on in here. I'm going to go to appearance, and for the font, I'm going to change that. And I'm going to bring it all the way up to 22 just to make it easier for you to see, and then click on apply. So I'm going to log in as the user I already created on this real router, which was Neil. And then I've also configured a warning message that it's only for authorized users. And then I'll also enter in my password there as well. And you can see I am now connected onto the New York router. So very simple. To connect to real Cisco devices over the network, just download Putty, then open Putty, enter the IP address of the device that you want to connect to, enter in your username and password. If that has been configured in your corporate network, which it most likely will be, you're now on the command line of the router and you can start configuring it. Okay, one last thing that I want to talk about here, and that is out-of-band management. So let me go back to the slides again. And you saw in that example there that I was the administrator over on the PC here, connecting over the corporate network onto the router in New York. And that traffic was going over the production network. What the production network means is the network that is being used for your normal user traffic, the network that is used for your staff in their normal activities. So for example, let's say we've got a normal staff member on their laptop here, and they are connecting to an email server, for example, over in New York. Well, when they connect to it, they're connecting over this network path here. That's the production network. And that was the same path that you went over when you were connecting to the router. So you can connect to the router for management over the normal production network. What you'll find most large companies do is they'll also have a separate dedicated network for management as well. So it looks like this. The reason that they put in a separate dedicated management network is maybe there's a problem with the router in New York over the production network, and you're not able to connect to it over there. So by having a separate dedicated management network, that gives you a backup path that you can use to connect to your network devices if they have any problems. It's also more secure having a separate dedicated path as well. So now we've got two paths that we can use to get to our router. When you do have a separate management network set up, if you're connecting over the production network, we call that in-band management. You're going in-band over the production network, going over the same cables that your normal users are using to connect between offices. If you connect over that separate management network, we call that out-of-band management. It's out of band, not over the same path as your normal staff traffic. Okay, so that was everything I needed to show you here about connecting over the network. In the next lecture, I'll show you how you can connect to a router over a direct console connection.